this time. Is it working? It seems to still be connected. Let me check. So I've tried this. If you can hear me, I see people in chat saying you're praying for the stream to come back. I'm praying. Is it working? Is it working? You can hear me? Yes. Okay. I think this might now be working. I have no idea how long for. So when I was trying before, it kept cutting out on the phone. I'm now on my phone. I see chat saying good things. I think we're on. I think we're good. I think we're here. I think we've got this. So what I was saying before that none of you could hear was that this is my first stream from home. But I think by now most of you have realised that, and that sort of explains all the technical chaos. I do have amazing Jeff Holdfast has been helping me. My amazing mods are here, as you've probably worked out by now, who I'm just going to check in with. Okay, it seems to be better. I'm going to keep checking in with you, chat, and keep checking in with you, mods, to make sure that we're good. But I think we're good. I've got lots of screens running, but most importantly, I've got this screen, which is where I can see you. Now then, let's talk about the shirt, which is the first thing we always love to talk about. I don't know if any of you saw on X, but I did deliberately wrong foot you all. I'm not. Today's stream is why are people saying no? Is it going again? It froze. Why did it freeze? It keeps buffering. How are we, everyone? Tell me. Is it lagging again? Oh no. Oh no. Okay, I'm just gonna wait. I'm not gonna say anything until I'm not gonna say anything interesting. I probably won't say anything interesting for the whole stream. But I'm gonna hold off for a second. So my mods are telling me that it could be Twitch. It's good now. Okay, I'm not going to say anything of note when you're telling me that you can't hear me. So don't worry, I'm going to take everyone with me. We're not going to talk about anything at all interesting unless I know that you can all hear me. So apologies for that lag. I didn't say anything about the shirt. All I said was I tricked you on Twitter deliberately. But the reason I'm wearing this blue shirt is because this, and if the person is here, I'd love them to shout out because I don't remember their name. But I had I think it was in Calgary, I was given this gorgeous shirt, and it's really comfortable. Most of the shirts that I get given are really comfortable. I don't know if that's a happy accident or deliberate, but they're really comfortable. And this is like lovely blue number. Blue is one of my favourite colours, if not my favourite colour. And the reason I'm wearing it is because I'm at home, for those of you that missed the beginning. And I've got a few bits and pieces around me which have been given to me over the time that I've been going to cons and doing various stuff. So that's why I wanted to wear this one today. I've also got a few other bits and pieces. I'm going to make sure, because this is a different setup, I just want to make sure I'm saying my thank yous properly. Forgive me if I miss some of these. I know I've missed quite a few, but I do... God, I've missed loads. Sorry, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm vengeful, as always. Thank you, Kim Puri. Thank you, Kinney here, and Amazing Ferret. Thank you, Gigi Wren, as always, and Ty Pixel. Alex Walter, as always, and Tom McKay Archive. Thank you, One Quick Drink. Thanks for the hype train, everyone. Thank you again, Alex Walter. Tsunami Silver. God, they're going so fast. I don't want to miss any. I saw a big one from Bradar. Thank you so much. And Idalia Soma. Sorry, everyone. They're moving too fast. I'm gonna come back to that because I don't want to miss people out unfairly. Anyway, it feels like we're all in. It feels like everybody is. Thank you, Missing Potato. It feels like you can all hear me, which is good. So, Mechanical Bull made the shirt. Thank you so much, and you're in chat. Thank you, Simon Mod, for telling me that. Yes, it's gorgeous and I love it. And I'm just before I dive into the questions, the whole point of today is that last week was my last day working on KCD2. I know there was lots of chat around that. I can't say any more than that. It's my last day working on that game. Who knows what the future holds? But what we do know is that the final DLC, my time on that DLC has finished. So I finished in Prague last week. It was super emotional. A real moment, because obviously it's been such a long time, and so I thought this week that I would do this Q&A, which felt like a very good idea until all these technical problems. But what I wanted to do was just kind of connect with you all and just give you the opportunity to ask more questions. I will be doing more Q&As in the future. It won't be the end of it. I'll like pepper them in. But I just thought, thank you, Medicinal Biscuits. I thought I would do a bit of this and take some questions. I probably won't get through all of them today, so forgive me. But what I'll probably do is I'll start off doing some of the questions from Twitter, and I might mix in a few. Thank you very much, Inquisition Scout. It's very kind. I will do some of the Twitter questions. I might take a few from chat here, but then I might take a little break in a little bit, and then a very short one. And then I will move into more focused on questions on chat. So it's going to lean more into the questions from Twitter X at the beginning, and then lean more into questions in chat. So that's that. But before I do that, I just wanted to show you a few more of the little things, because when I sat down, I was like, I've got loads of stuff around me that I just keep, that everyone gives me. So I'm going to show you a few of those things. This first one is from actually way before KCD2 came out, and I know that because I remember hanging on to it, and it's dated 2022. I think somebody posted this to me, and the artist name is L Kinsey. So I don't know if that's I don't know if L Kinsey is here. It's not a name I remember popping up, but you might have a different username. But how gorgeous is that? And the reason it's not just about this beautiful piece of art. This is sort of a shout out to all the artists who, many of whom I know, like Coral and 40 and so many of you. But it's unfair to name anyone because there's so many brilliant artists, and I see what you make and it's absolutely beautiful. Thanks, Liz Forge. So I just wanted to hold up a piece of art that sort of represents all of the art. Thank you, Desmoy. All the art and the artists. So this is a particularly beautiful piece of art, but they all are, and they all mean a lot. And the fact that any of you spend any time at all investing your time and your talent in us and this game is a huge compliment. So thank you. That's why I got that one out. This next one sort of is similar. I think I've shown this before, but this is the set with which I learned to play Farkle. This was given to me, again, I think in Calgary. But this is gorgeous, and it's got a little scorecard, which is how I learned to play Farkle, and all my dice and a little thrower. So that was something else that I found. Hilariously, I've also got loads of photos of me and Luke next to me, which we do our Streamily. We're doing one a week on Friday, so hopefully some of you can turn up to that. But there's a big pile of pictures, and there's some new pictures. That's not a new one, but there's some new ones to choose from. But last but not least, and this is not going to fit. Thank you, Pakval. This is not going to fit into this. Now that I'm doing it on the phone, this isn't going to fit, but hopefully it'll make you laugh. The last thing, which I keep in this room at home, is this. That guy, which sits in the corner and makes me very happy to look at. It may have just fallen over. So, there's one last thing before I dive into the questions. I think I may have already said that, but it's me, you know the drill. So when I was in Prague last week, somebody dropped off at the reception at Warhorse a little present. I actually also met an amazing Chinese couple who just happened to turn up at Warhorse Studios to like have a look, which I'm not advocating for that. That's not for me to get involved with, but they turned up, and I happened to be going out on my lunch break at that time, and they told me they had never left China. They'd never been out of their home country, and it was their first time in Czech Republic, obviously, and they came to Warhorse just to see what there is. And honestly, there's not that much to see, so I'm not advocating for people just hanging out at the Warhorse offices because there's not a lot to see downstairs. But I walked through the barrier to go for my lunch, and obviously they were quite shocked because they weren't expecting to see me. And they were so lovely, and they were so like kind and gentle and respectful, and and just lovely and sort of representative of all of you. So shout out to those two, but also shout out to whoever it was that left me this. They also left me a couple of others, but this is obviously my favourite, which I'm going to open now because it means Henry in Czech, for those of you who don't know. For those of you that missed the Warhorse streams, before every one of my streams, I went and tried to find a Yindra Henry bottle of Coke, or whatever the drink might be called. And I couldn't find one. But they found one for me. Apparently it's only the bottles that you have them. So I have my Yindra Coke, or whatever it might be called. I have my ginger drink. Thank you very much, Ty Pixel. That's very kind. I don't know if the person is here who left me those gifts, but I just do want to say thank you so much. I'm not going to be throwing this one away when it's finished. I'm just going to hang on to it because it's great. So obviously I said that was the last one, but I forgot that I also found this, which is really cute, which someone else gave me. Which I really love. I think that was Vilnius, Lithuania. I've got such a bad memory. So there we go. Those are all the gorgeous, some of the gorgeous gifts. Thank you so much all for turning up, as always. Thank you, Bernard in a hat. And I do want to apologise for everyone that subbed and cheered and threw in bits earlier in the stream. I'm going to try again to see if I can go back there, but I don't know if it's going to work. Sorry, I'm just going to mess things up. But I see so many of the usual suspects: Lady Sarah, Ray, thank you. Peasant from Peasant Stan, Catherine von Bingen, Fletcher Warlock as always, Ella Minster as always, thank you. Terrible Simon, thank you. Also sorting me out in my mod chat. Quillfane and Madman's Box, thank you, and Shinny McLean and I'm Vengeful and Black Wolf Cosplay, all these people who just come every time, and I love all of you, and I love the new people too. Thank you very much, Death Professor. Thank you, Glamouring Gaming and Bradar. I'm not going to get them all, am I? The Gooey Juice and Janju. I think I got most of them. Forgive me for the ones that I missed. I'm going to be more across it. Thank you, Spike Lee, as always. Okay. So, let's dive into some of the questions. The first question, one of the first questions that I was asked was from Kingdom Come Deliverance, and the Kingdom Come Deliverance account, and they asked, "Do you like me as much as I like you?" Yes, is the only answer to that. Thank you, Luna Beans. Yes, Kingdom Come Deliverance account, I do, but the person that runs it is very, very funny and does it very well, as you all know. But I do. Yes, I do. And I think it's really funny when you will have seen the beginning of the video. They surprised me and they gave me a beautiful gift that I'll show you another time. And loads of the staff were downstairs when I finished my last voiceover session. And I went down and I felt really emotional. It was really weird. So I started by saying I'm going to try really hard not to cry, which I think you might have seen in that little clip that was posted. But it wasn't a joke. I was really like, I think I might very well burst into tears here. But I managed to hold it together. Not that who would have cared if I cried? Who cares? It's like, it's been a long time and I'm really fond of them. So nothing wrong with crying with friends. But the response to the question to Kingdom Come Deliverance account, do I like them as much as they like me? Yes, absolutely I do. Now then, Joshi Domi asked, who's here I think, on X, any fun or memorable behind the scenes moments during recording? It was sort of only fun moments and only memorable, because every day was so different. So there were some days, particularly for KCD2, where obviously there's a whole cast of new characters, and there were some days where there'd be loads of you and it'd be really busy and like funny and lots of battles or lots of jokes or lots of banter and stuff. And then there were days where it was literally just me on the motion capture stage. And they were sort of memorable for different reasons, because obviously the nature of the scenes that you're doing is always very different. So that kind of informs what's going on in the room. But particularly when the room was full, lots of funny and silly things happened. Because if you think about the sort of setup that you've got lots of grown adults in head to toe lycra with massive kind of structures on their head that hold the camera, the head mounted cameras, HMCs as they call them. And you've got dots all over you, and you're pretending to be people from 1403. So it's sort of hilarious straight away. Now, I know you could say that about any acting, that you go, well, you're just a load of grown-ups pretending to be pretending. And you could obviously say that that's ridiculous. But it is particularly funny on the motion capture stage because of the way you all look. However, what's also really interesting is how quickly it becomes not funny, how you just get completely used to that, and your best friend is kind of your imagination. So people often ask me, like, how do you do particular scenes or whatever? And the answer is the same as any acting scene. You're just using your imagination and the other actors, if there are some, which there almost always are, and making believe. And I've said this before, but it is essentially like being a kid again. You just have to remind yourself that way that we all used to play when we were kids, without a filter, to just switch that back on and remind yourself how you just play and be silly. So they were all fun and memorable. I mean, I know I've talked before about the horse riding. The horse riding is really funny because we are literally on stills because we don't need to be on anything else. There's no we don't. Although they did bring a real horse onto the performance capture stage in Poland when I went to Platij to make the CGI trailer, they did bring a real horse on stage then. But you don't need it, obviously, and certainly day to day, it would be completely impractical to bring a real horse onto the performance capture stage at Warhorse, not least because it's on the fourth floor of a building in a lift. It would be physically impossible. The Platij studio in Warsaw has this big like dock door, like a sort of theatre dock door, so that goes out onto street level. So they were able to get a horse in, but and that was a huge luxury and a kind of amazing thing they were able to execute. But at Warhorse, we're on horses a lot, as you know from playing the game. So there's no need for us all to be sat on real horses all the time. But you are literally just sat kind of back to front on a stool. And again, like I say, it's really that's ridiculous, and you all look ridiculous because actually your job is just to imagine that you are on a real horse and you're in a real situation. So it starts out being hilarious and ridiculous, and very quickly it becomes very serious and professional. Well, very serious. I'm not sure how professional we all are. What was the hardest line to... So Ethanol FC says, what was the hardest line to record and what took the most takes to get right? I suppose the hardest lines are probably... I remember doing the final scenes with Dan Vavra directing for the family stuff. They weren't hard in that... Obviously, you're kind of summoning a lot of emotion and you're kind of trying to fill it with like the backstory of this whole character and the kind of stakes that entails. Thank you, Having Hoops. But so it's kind of hard in that you're trying to get it right. It's not necessarily hard to summon all that energy. But in terms of retakes, my biggest thing with retakes was always inflection, because this is quite an unusual thing, but I really found this in voiceover because a lot of the chat you're doing is not linear. Wow, thank you very much, Dusty Fedora. That's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. That's incredibly generous. Thank you. Because a lot of the lines are not linear, it's a bit like looking at chat actually, because there's just like lots of ideas and lots of people chatting in, and the dialogue as you see it on the screen is a bit like that. So it's like little threads that go a certain distance and then you go back to a certain question. And I spent a lot of my time in voiceover asking the director, what is the cue? Where did this line come from? Is it what I just actually heard, or have we gone back like 15 minutes in our recording session to a cue that was 15 minutes ago? And the reason I mention that is it really affects inflection and like the word that you stress. So to give you an example, if someone goes, have you seen, have you been to Skalitz recently? Thank you again, Dusty Fedora. Have you been to Skalitz recently? And you might go, yeah, I have been to Skalitz recently. Or there might be no cue that has the word Skalitz in it. So then it would be more like, I haven't been to Skalitz recently. And it's such a tiny thing. And, some non-native English speakers can't even hear the difference. And I understand why. But I was a real stickler for that inflection, because I was like, I really want it to sound like a proper conversation. I really want, whatever choices you're making as the player, I really want to make sure that those stresses are right, so it doesn't sound like the record's skipping the whole time, because we're not actually recording them directly in that order. And it really like I was really particular about it and probably quite annoying to work with, but I was like, I would do a lot of retakes based on that sort of thing, because I was like, I just want to make sure that when you're playing it through, that it flows like a conversation, and that I'm stressing the right words. And if it's a word that's being repeated, you're hearing that in the inflection. And if you're hearing a word or a name, place name or a character name for the first time, that's marked out. So I insisted on doing a lot of retakes for those kind of lines. And I sort of stand by that, because it is, for sure, it's quite arduous when you're doing it, especially if it's not a particularly dramatic scene. But what it means is that, hopefully it means that by the time you get to play it, it feels like people talking and having a proper time. I'm just checking with a few of you. Head Bath Venture Prague is saying the office building is not that interesting. You're right. But yeah, and a couple of you were saying that you did hear that in the inflection. So I really, really hope so, because I was kind of really obsessed, maybe slightly overly obsessed about that idea. Vivanus says, is it different to perform romantic scenes with men compared to women? No, not at all. It's really, your job is to tell a story truthfully and honestly, and to tell it professionally. So no, not at all. It doesn't make any difference. Overlord Timon says, what was my favourite scene to record? Well, I've said this before, so forgive me for those of you that have heard it, but I really loved all the family scenes. I felt really wedded to that, because they're so the thing that drives him forward, and that informs all his choices. The reason he leaves Skalitz in the first place and goes out into the world and does anything at all apart from just stay in Skalitz. Thank you, Spectre Marvel. Is because of what happens to his parents. That's why he goes and does what he does. So, and they really they bookend the whole story, obviously, but they also come every so often. There's like a really key moment where that's the thing that it is it's like the thing that's pushing him forward. And whether you're playing him vengefully or honourably or sneakily or whatever, that remains the same. Those are the things that are making you make the choices. And so I really enjoyed those scenes, because they just felt like the absolute heart of who he is and why he does the things that he does. Maria, hello Maria, I see a lot, asks, during make-up sessions, were there any scenes that you had to repeat most often? And do I know who wrote the Hansry romance? I don't know who wrote the Hansry romance. I know it was conceived by Prokop and Dan as the sort of lead creators, but who actually wrote the scenes? I should know that, and I don't. Thank you, Coral. Maybe there's an amazing woman called Martina, and I think she might have had some input on it, but I shouldn't really say, because I don't know is the honest answer. But in terms of repeating scenes in mocap, we did all of them quite a few times, because often it might be a tiny detail that you're just fixing, or it might be something very glaring physically that isn't working. So no, there were no scenes that took especially longer than the other. The only thing that does affect it is the number of people on the stage. So it does take a bit longer if there's more of you. It definitely takes longer to start at the beginning of the day, because you have to do this whole calibration thing where individually you go onto the stage and you do you probably know T-poses and various shapes, and we would do facial calibration in the morning. So it could take up to 90 minutes to 2 hours just to get started, just to literally get, when there was 8 or 9 of you, from the moment you all arrived to getting the suits on, to having the headsets put on, to doing all the calibration individually, and then doing group calibration all together, so you all kind of walk around the stage. Thank you, Nita Elwi. That could take a really, really long time. So that would slow you down more than anything, actually. But in terms of the doing of the scenes, one thing we would do quite often is, if it was a really, really long scene, they would sometimes break it into parts. So if it was a 4 or 5 page scene, they might go, right, let's get up to this point of the scene, and then we'll stop, and then we'll start again. Thank you, Desmoy. What was the other thing I was going to say about that? Oh yes. So because this stage is a certain size, like a limited size, if you're doing a scene where you're running across a long distance or towards someone, often you'll break that. Just do a piece of one person running across, and then you pick it up where they kind of re-enter the stage, but it's the end of that run, and then they walk into someone and have a conversation with them. So that was quite interesting technically, that you'd be chopping it up as you went and doing it in little pieces, and that was often driven by the sort of the room that you had to play with, and also bits of furniture. Sometimes there might be something that acted as a wall. So it's like, okay, when you walk down that corridor, there's a wall and you have to go around it this way. So they would just put up some sort of structure, not a wall, obviously. And sometimes they might go, right, we'll do the bit where you walk around that wall and then we'll pick it up on the other side. And even things like, when we're on the battlements, all that stuff, there might not be enough width to do it. So you might do 2 bits of the battlements as separate pieces. All of that is very like TV, actually. That, in terms of the sort of technical challenges that throws up, that is very like TV acting in terms of the sort of the kind of artifice, if you like, the sort of the extent to which you're having to pretend and put things together. But that's the job. That's the same as in theatre, you're not really standing on the set that you're supposed to be stood in. On a performance capture stage, you're definitely not. You never have any of the actual things. What you do have is on the wall, there's like a projection of just the physicality of each person. So you can watch a scene back, and obviously you can't see faces, you can't see any of the facial capture. You all look essentially the same on the screen. But you do have some sense, thank you very much, Tides of Chaos, you do have some sense of how the scene will look and how it will fit together. And if you're trying to fix a problem, so many brilliant directors, a brilliant guy called Pepe who's one of the lead directors and cinematic directors, and he might be like, rather than try and explain the problem he's trying to fix, he'd just go watch the scene and you'll see why it looks like, for example, if you're on a horse, it doesn't look like you're going fast enough. You need to lean into it more and you need to like kick more, like be more vocal. Thank you very much, Zalka 120. So that's a bit like TV. Sometimes, not all directors will let you do this, but some directors will let you watch what's called playback, where you literally just go and watch the scene that you recorded. A lot of directors don't like it because they think it interferes with your performance, but some do let you do it, and that it's a bit like that, but it's just much more rudimentary because you can't see. It's nothing to do with facial capture because you can't watch that back. And I don't think I ever watched. I guess technically you probably could watch the playback of facial capture, but we never did. That was never like. That was never a thing. It was always to do with the kind of physicality of a scene. Just checking in with chat. How you all doing? I'm assuming that you can all hear me okay now. Just so you all know, I see that a lot of you are asking questions now. Some of my brilliant mods are across this and are like pinning questions, so I'm going to get to some of those later, so don't think you're getting ignored. You're not. I won't be able to get to all of them today, but I will try and find a way to hang on to them all. I've got all the ones from X, from Twitter, so I'll do as many as I can, and then I'll keep back some for other streams, and we'll keep asking them as we go. Thank you very much, Langzuma, and thanks for your amazing artwork, which I've seen lots of recently. WP Hadream, who's someone I see a lot, but I don't know what your real name is, obviously, asks, what particular quests or scenes in voice recording that I remember vividly were fun to record? Definitely the stocks. So a few of you have asked me this. We had a lot of fun in the stocks, Luke and I. And it was literally, you might have seen some of the footage, but in terms of what was being thrown at us, it was just like devs with bits of paper just sat on the floor just going... Well, we were in sort of like stock. We were in the right position, obviously. We were like, but they weren't actual stocks, but they just improvised as they always do, and we were in the stocks for quite a long time. I think we might have done a whole morning of that scene because it was quite long and complicated. But that was a lot of fun and very silly, and but also like. It was one of the key... When they originally talked us through the storyline, they were like, this is actually a really important moment. So even though it's ridiculous and silly and funny, it's also a point where you've actually had enough of each other and you're really sick of it, and it's like, we are done at this point. So yes, it's very funny, but it's all, at the end, it's like not funny at all. They're literally like, I've literally had enough of you. I don't want you in my life anymore. Just get out of here. And that's what happens. So... but it was also very, very funny, obviously. I'm glad you all can hear me. I'm glad you're all throwing stocks into chat. I love to see that. Sorry, I'm just checking with the mods to make sure everyone's happy. Okay, good. All seems good. So that one really sticks out in my mind. And I think the thing is as well, when you're recording the scenes... some of them are like real anchor scenes and like really significant and where they fit in the story, but some are you have less of a sort of full context and understanding of where it sits. And the Brilliant Warhorse team obviously give you a lot of information on what you need, but you don't, say like a scene at the end with the parents, you absolutely know where that sits in terms of his emotional journey and like, you know, what that will mean to players and where it sits. Other scenes, like sort of mid-battle scenes, or, you know, there's a scene where we're carting a guy off, I think I haven't got there in my playthrough yet, but on a cart, and you know the emotions that are driving the scene, you know what you want, you know where you're going, but you don't necessarily have such a big understanding of like where it sits in the whole story, and you don't need to often, you know, it's more about just playing the moment that you're in. Wendy is asking, in my previous stream I was asked about my favourite, most memorable line from the Hansley storyline, and I'd forgotten. I said I'd answer it another day. Oh God, sorry, Wendy, I haven't. I can't remember. I'm seeing Luke next week, or the weekend. In fact, we're going to be in Glasgow. Any of you coming to Glasgow? Give us a shout out if you are. Hopefully, some of you can make it. Unfortunately. Fortunately and unfortunately, we're really happy to be going there, but what it does mean inevitably, because we were locked into that before we knew about the fan fest, so we won't be at the fan fest, unfortunately. I'm really sorry, but I hope you will have an amazing time, those of you that are there. But we will be in Glasgow, so I'll see him and I will ask him about that, because he's played the scene now as well, so as from a playing perspective. So let's keep going with these questions. Pecky has said, did Henry's story change or influence me in any way, and has it made me more interested in medieval stuff? I was already pretty interested in medieval stuff, but yes, it's definitely my sort of understanding of Czech history, which was virtually non-existent before this game. Thank you very much, Teddy McKyle. My understanding of that is much deeper. I didn't know anything about that particular part of the world and their history, but my interest in medieval history kind of already existed. Did his story change or influence me? Yeah, I think they always do. I think any character that you care about, which should be all of the characters you play, do influence you. And does it change you? I do. I love his sort of nobility and his sort of moral uprightness. I hope I have something of that in me, but I'd probably be flattering myself to say that I did. But I feel like that probably seeps into my bones to some extent, and in a good way. Canna asked, have I ever found myself using Henry's voice or dialect in everyday situations? Not intentionally, but I will say it's quite weird. So the TV job that I'm doing at the minute, I have a particular accent which is not Henry's accent, and I've noticed that bleeds in when I've been doing it all day on the job. That bleeds into like my sort of day-to-day life. Accidentally, and the same is true of Henry to an extent. So if I've done an 8-hour recording day in his accent, which for those of you that don't know is relatively different to my own accent. So I'm from the Midlands originally. The accent that we chose for Henry, which we kind of chose during a workshop day, which was part of the audition process, is like a West Country lilt. It's sort of like so the southwest of England, there's a kind of gentle burr. It's a sort of some people think of it as like a Bristol accent, or it's that part of the world, sort of Thomas Hardy country, and it's sort of a neutral country boy accent in British terms. Thank you very much, dear Alexis, and thank you for looking after me. And that's one of my mods there. So it's if you're looking for an accent, so often, like the Game of Thrones accents we talk about, there's like a general northern that some people use that gives you like a quality. You're not saying they're from the north of England. You're not literally saying that's where they're from. But in sort of British terms, at least, and to some extent within the English-speaking world, it has a quality that makes you think of a certain type of person. Very broadly speaking, I mean, obviously this is being incredibly stereotypical and it's not all-encompassing by any means. But what the West Country accent does as an English speaker to some extent is it's like thank you, Richie Crispy. There's a sort of softness and openness, a warmth, I would say. It suggests someone that didn't necessarily grow up in a city, although Bristol is a city, and lots of people have an accent like that there. But it's more suggestive of like a rural environment, more like Scalets. So it kind of helps with those sort of qualities, and that's why we ended up leaning into that accent. But yes, Canna, there were times where I would come out and be a bit more like, I mean, it's not that different. You can hear it in my accent, but the rolling R's are a bit different with Henry. And how would he say it? He'd ask you a question like this. He'd say, have you ever found yourself using Henry's voice or dialect in everyday situations? I don't know if can you hear the difference, chat? I'm going to dive into chat for a minute and see if you can actually even hear that. Maybe you can't. Maybe you're like, that's exactly the same. Yeah, you can hear it. It's like it's not really distinct, but it's there. So yeah, I definitely did slip into it at times. Knocked Algrad said, what was the funniest part to work on? Well, we talked a lot about horses, so I'm not going to bore you with horse stories again, but I love the question. Oksana, who I see a lot, hello Oksana, says, what was my first reaction to getting the role of Henry? I was really happy. I was anything because a lot of you know, so I'd literally done a few lines voiceover in a game before, but nothing at all substantial, no performance capture, and it wasn't a world that I was familiar with. It wasn't one that I knew a ton about. So I was curious more than anything, and I was really excited. At that point, it was, I think the commitment was something like it was going to be like 6 weeks in Prague and performance capture, and then like some voiceover to be confirmed. That was probably going to happen in Prague, but we weren't sure. So it was quite an unknown thing. Like, it was like, okay, that's the time of my life it's going to take. That's how long I'm going to be in Prague. I don't know a huge amount about what I'm going to be doing, but I had at least met. So the first audition was literally a self-tape at home. I sent it off. I didn't know anything about it. That was that. And most self-tapes, you don't hear anything back. So, and then they asked me to go over there, and I went and auditioned. So I had met Dan Vavra, the creator. I'd met an amazing woman called Katka, who was one of the production leads. I always shout them out, her and Petra and Misha, and there's like a big team, lovely lady called Vera who worked on the performance capture. But Katka was sort of the arms and legs of the production side. She's a formidable, intelligent, talented woman, as is Petra, the woman who's now doing that job, who I'm incredibly fond of both of them. So I met them, and most of my contact was then with Katka at that point. I literally had dinner with her last week. She's no longer a warhorse, sadly, but and I met brilliant Martin, who directed a lot of the first game. I don't know Martin's surname, shamefully, but he's a very talented director, and I had a day with him. John Kamer, who does a lot of the dialect and the translation. So I met them. So I had a good understanding. I knew that I liked the people, and I knew I liked the story that they were selling to me, and that the character they described, and I knew I loved the idea of working on a game and doing performance capture. But that was it. So in terms of how I felt, Oksana, I felt excited and curious, but also unsure, I suppose. I didn't know what it was going to be, and we definitely didn't know what the game was going to become at that point. Clearly, that was just not, we had no idea that I would be sat here now doing this. No idea whatsoever. But mostly I was really happy. Lord Swordplay, who I see a lot, hello, asked what's the most fun I've had while filming and recording KCD. Again, I think the horse play, the stocks. We've talked a lot about those things, but it's a great question. And I love it. There's a reason why it's been asked more than once. Anna Diedrich says, "Am I ready to get best performance at the Game Awards?" That's very kind. I'd flatter myself to think that's in any way likely, but I did see some of you shouting out on X the other day for that, and it really is very humbling, and genuinely, it's not a kind of like, but it's genuinely very humbling. Some of the people that are being mentioned in those conversations are like incredibly seasoned, gaming and voiceover and performance capture actors. So even to be like mentioned in the same sentence as those people is just a huge privilege and honour. But thank you for those of you that were shouting out and supporting me there. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know if I'll even be part of any of those conversations, but what I do know is I absolutely love this character in this game, and it's been a privilege to play him, whatever happens going forward. Okay. Fletcher the Warlock, who I see a lot. Hello, Fletcher. Says, let me do some shout outs. Thank you, Canna, and thank you, Coral. Hello, Coral. And hello, Canna, again. Fletcher says, What was the most memorable scene from mocap? Well, as I said before, I think it's those family scenes. They're the ones I always come back to. Obviously, the scenes with Hans particularly are like real anchor scenes as well. But it's the family stuff that is kind of that it's the real like moral and emotional map for Henry of like who he is and why he does the things he does. Silly Roth says, what was the most insane or unhinged thing you voiced in the booth for KCD1 or 2? And that person wonders if players and opinions differ over that. I think some of the most unhinged stuff was me just screaming in Hungarian and drunk with Keemans. That was pretty unhinged. Half the time with no idea what I was saying. There's someone who speaks very good Hungarian in the studio that helped me out with that stuff. But yeah, that was pretty unhinged. I mean, there was quite a lot of unhinged stuff, but definitely that was a sort of slight fever dream moment of like, what am I actually doing? This is my job. I mean, you know, this is what I do for a living. I just scream Hungarian at people with headphones on. Oh, I like this question. Hang on. Safranina says, who I also see, Safranina says, if Henry lived today, what job or life do you think he would have? I think someone asked me this at a con, but I really love it as a question. I love these sort of slightly left field questions rather. I think he would be living probably in quite a rural... Well, actually, I've just spent some time in the beautiful Czech countryside, having never really had a chance to do that. So when I finished in Prague last week, I went off for a few days in the country and it was so beautiful. And I was like, this is where Henry would be. It's very agricultural, it's very unspoiled. There's not a lot of people, at least where we were in the south part of the country. And I could see him in that environment. I've never been to Skalitz. I would love to go to Skalitz, but I could see him in that environment, just living like a simple job. Glambering Gaming says he would have joined the military as an engineer. Yes, very possibly. I think he'd live that life, but he would find it hard not to seek out adventure, I think. And a lot of people have talked about, you know, what would happen next in Henry's world, and there's sort of anything is possible because it's up to you, really. You could literally have him go back to Skalitz and marry Teresa and settle down and have a big family and never leave again and be like, that's enough for me. Or you could have him move to Prague and like, you know, command armies and get into political circles and do all this stuff. He's bright enough to. And like anything in between. But I think if he was in today's world, he'd probably be living like that. I don't think he'd be a big tech boy or, you know, which is very like me. Someone also asked at that con, as I remember, they asked Luke what Hans would be doing, and I think we decided that he'd probably be like a finance bro or a tech bro. Making loads of money, living the fast life. But yeah, I think every so often they'd probably meet up, not in the city, and that world would probably not be for Henry. Well, Henry the tech boy would be fun, some of you are saying. Yeah, I guess it would be. Just checking in the chat. Yeah, crypto bro. Yeah, Henry could be a politician. I feel like he'd be quite a good politician in the way that, you know, sometimes it feels very inauthentic when people are like, oh, it's a man of the people, and then it turns out it's someone incredibly privileged that is not those things. But Henry, I think people would vote for Henry. He's sort of... because he has a good moral compass. Well, he does if you choose for him to, but many of you may have chosen for him not to have a good moral compass at all. Thank you very much, Marie Ode. Let me just... say a few thank yous. Thank you very much, Notorious Thick. Thank you very much, Sunshines and Jessica. So I've got a lot of screens running here, so I'm just making sure I'm staying across all this. Thanks, Holmanstret. Spike Lee sends a lovely message with no question, but just sending lots of love, and I send that right back to you. Thank you, Spike Lee. I don't know if you're here today, but I really appreciate that. Yeah, here's another open-ended question that I like, and this is from Alcoholic Seal. It always bothers Alcoholic Seal that after finishing the main quest, Henry won't be able to have more conversations with Hans. So, Tom, is there anything Henry and Hans would discuss further after the final battle? and this person says they'd be fine with unofficial imagination. Well, it is unofficial because I don't write these stories, and the brilliant people at Warhorse do. God, there's anything they could talk about. I feel like in the vein. Oh, hi, Spokesy, I see you there. In the vein of what we were saying before, it's sort of up to you, really. Like, they could talk about anything from deep romance, if that's what you've chosen, like, real like intimacy and sort of connection, or something much more formal and distant. It could also be like antagonistic. It could be quite negative. There are versions of it where they're not so connected, and they're talking about that scene in the stocks where they've actually had enough of each other. I think by the end of the story, that's not the case. I think they're, whether it's romantic or not, there is a very deep connection of sorts. Thank you, Bernard and Hat. It sort of could be anything, and I feel like the nature of their friendship or their romance, if that's what you've chosen to make it, like any kind of deep friendship, is that it has sort of endless possibilities. And so I think they could talk about anything as like ridiculous to like getting drunk, to their life back before any of this happened, their old friends like Matthew and Fritz and all those people, although those were friends of Henry's, specifically not Hans's, but anything from that to like life, the universe and everything, to like big political ideas, to their aspirations and everything in between again. So it sort of feels like it could be anything. It could be like the minutiae of life, or it could be like the human condition and like massive themes. And I feel like their friendship runs to all of those things, as it does. I think that's true of most people with good deep friendships. And you might only have one or two of those in your life if you're lucky. I think you're lucky if you even get one. But like that is sort of the foundation of good friendship, isn't it? The ability to do all of those things, and also to just sit in silence, because I think they could probably do that. That's also a sign of a very good deep friend, where you don't necessarily need to say anything. Says the man who never shuts up. Hang on. Let me just do this. Maglufa says, since I did lengthy voiceover sessions as Henry, did I ever find myself struggling to get out of Henry's mindset afterwards? Thank you very much, Red Bull Girly Girl. And thank you, I'm Vengeful. Yes, I did. But the interesting thing about... there's sort of two differences, I suppose, with Henry and performance capture to like traditional acting. So the job I'm doing at the moment is very, very all-encompassing and very like, I can't say too much about it at the moment. The story is very, very involving and like upsetting in lots of ways. And that is very difficult to shake off at the end of the day. With Henry, it's almost like the perfect fitting clothes that you go, I know that character so well, I've played it for such a long time, that the clothes come on and off much more easily, I suppose. So they come on very easily. I can remember his voice, I can remember who he is very, very easily, and I can really like engage with that. But I can also, at the end of the day, remove that more easily, perhaps, than some characters I played, because I know it will always be there again. And I've said before that if I go away for like months at a time, which happens a lot, and then I come back to Henry, he's really accessible. It's really like easy for me to find him again and find his voice. And I suspect that will always be the case because I've never, ever played a character for that long. And he will always be there in my bones. So I don't know that I would say I struggle to get out of his mindset, but there's always, like we were saying to Kanna's question about the accent, there's always like, it's almost like, there's Christmas shakers that you get and all the snow goes up and it just takes a while for it to settle. It's a bit like that. At the end of the day, you sort of go, it's like you've shaken it all day and it just takes some time for it to all settle down. And I would say, that probably... It's almost like there's more snow with Henry because it's such a richer character that I play for longer, but it settles faster, if that makes sense at the end of the day. Maybe that makes no sense. Thank you, Bradar. Okay. Cyberro83 says, it's... a confirmation about KCD3 would be nice. I can't confirm or deny anything. They wouldn't tell me even if they knew, but I don't know. And even if I did, I couldn't say, but I don't. I genuinely don't. All right. What's the question there? Was there something that surprised me the way it turned out in the game, even if it was something I did in the voiceover? Yes. This is Cyber Ray, so it's Roland is the person asking. Yes, there were all the time that happened. So in terms of the cinematic nature of what they were executing, we were told what that was, but it's very different to be told and then to see it. So we hadn't seen any of that during performance capture, and thank you, Jelly Belly. There is one. There's loads of sequences, but particularly one sequence I talked about before. You know the sequence where after you fall down and Hans is carrying you, like is supporting you through, and it's basically. Technically, it's a way to bring in new players and tell them the narrative they've missed. It's also a way to remind existing players what happened in the last game. But what they've done so brilliantly is that rather than just do that and have like a last time on KCD, they've made it into a really energetic, dynamic sequence, which is the sequence where Henry's having all these flashbacks and he's like really messed up. And so all of these like hallucinations are happening because he's so messed up. And it's things like Markvart and Markvart's army approaching Skalitz and horses like kicking down doors and his parents and all these things. And we did that in voiceover, and they had a really basic rudimentary version of the animation. One sec, I'm just going to plug some things in so I don't lose power. In fact, let me do this. Sorry, everyone. So they described it to me, and I had some understanding of like what it would actually look like. But when I saw it, it blew my mind. I genuinely couldn't believe how sort of brilliantly executed that was and how sort of triggering it was. And obviously, you know, for me, like lots of emotions and things that I played way back in KCD, that was bringing all of those up, which I'd also had to like mine during the making of KCD2. Of course I had. But it's really potent. And I think just the visuals, the way that they'd done it and the way that the cinematics team had put it all together, I don't know that I had fully understood how amazing that was going to be. I know I hadn't. I sort of had a version in my head which was very good, but it was nothing like the level they had achieved. So that's one that really sticks out. Thanks for that question, Roland. The Wolf of Skalitz, hello, Wolf of Skalitz says, have I played dice with Luke? And then you say, why not? So it's almost as if you know I haven't. No, I haven't, and I should. Why can't Henry play dice with Hans? I don't know. That's a Warhorse question. Sorry. I don't know. But no, I haven't played dice with Luke. I would love to. I think I'm right in saying he said to me that he. Thank you, Bernard in a hat. I think he said he's not as big a Farkle fan. Is that right? You'll all know. Tell me. Does he like Farkle? You're all telling me to teach him, which makes me think he must know a bit how to play, doesn't he? Does he know at all how to play? Just you're all telling me he's terrible. He's never really tried. Well, I'm going to have to do something about that, aren't I? That's a great idea. I will absolutely get him to the Farkle table and teach him a thing or two.